the sun has gone below the rooftops. The market stalls are folded and shuttered. The last carts have rumbled out through the gate. The smell of the day, bread, dung, smoke, animals, is settling into something cooler and simpler as the air turns with the evening. In a walled town in the English Midlands, a man named Robert is beginning his night's work. He is a watchman, a keeper of the town's dark hours. One of 4 men who walk the streets and tend the gates from curfew until dawn. Every evening when the light fails, he is here, taking up his lantern, checking the bell rope, walking the circuit of the walls. And at the start of each night, there is a ritual. The ringing of the evening bell. The sounding of the curfew. The moment when the town officially closes itself to the day and opens to the night. Tonight, like every night, Robert will ring the bell. Let us join him as the town quiets. The bell tower stands at the center of the town, attached to the Guildhall. It is not the church tower, that is taller, and its bells belong to the parish. This tower is a civic structure. Shorter, squarer, built of the same pale local stone as the Guildhall walls. The bell inside is iron, cast a generation ago. Heavy enough that it takes a man's full weight on the rope to start it moving. Robert knows its weight. He has been ringing this bell every evening for 11 years. The tower has a single room at its base. Stone floor. A wooden staircase, narrow and steep, leading up to the bell chamber. A door that opens onto the street, secured from inside with a heavy iron bar. Robert steps inside. The room smells of cold stone and dust and something else, the faint metallic smell of old iron that has been in a damp place for a long time. The bell, even from below, carries that smell down through the floors. He sets his lantern on the ledge. He looks up the staircase. Then takes hold of the bell rope. The rope is thick hemp, twisted tight, worn smooth at the grip from 10,000 hands before his. It hangs through a hole in the ceiling, disappearing upward into the bell chamber above. Robert wraps his hands around it. This is the moment he has always liked, oddly. The moment just before the bell rings. The town is still going about its business, voices in the lane outside, a child calling, the sound of a shutter being pulled to. The day is still technically alive. And then he will pull the rope, and the bell will speak, and the day will be finished. He is the hinge of that transition. The man at the pivot. He plants his feet. Braces. Pulls. The iron bell moves. He can feel it through the rope, the enormous slow lurch of a great weight reluctantly beginning to swing. Then the moment of balance, tipping, and the striker hits the iron wall. The sound is immense. It fills the tower from floor to ceiling. It passes through Robert's chest like a hand pressing. It goes out through the stone walls and through the narrow streets and across the tiled and thatched rooftops of the entire town. 1 peal. 2. He counts them as he pulls. Each one a full swing of the bell, back and then forward. The rope rises and falls. His shoulders work. 3. 4. 5. The town is listening. He knows this. Wherever people are, at their tables, at their counters, in the lanes, they are counting these peals the same way he is. 6, 7, 8. He lets the bell slow. Steadies the rope. Feels the great weight settle back into stillness. 8 peals. The curfew. The day is done. The echoes take a long time to die. The last resonance of the bell hangs in the air of the tower long after the iron itself has gone still. A fading hum in the stone. In his teeth. In the air of his lungs. He releases the rope slowly. Outside, in the lanes, he can hear the town respond. Doors opening and closing. The sound of footsteps quickening, people finishing their business, heading home, observing the curfew as the law requires. Fire must be covered or extinguished in every hearth before the bell count ends. Couvre-feu. Cover the fire. The word the Normans brought, now simply the word for this hour. Curfew. He stands in the tower room for a moment and listens to the town compact itself. It is like watching a hand close. Fingers coming in, one by one, until the fist is made. He waits until the sounds have mostly stilled. Then he takes up his lantern. The night begins. He checks his equipment before stepping out. The lantern first. It is an iron frame with panels of thin scraped horn, yellowed with age and use. Horn is better than oiled cloth, it lets the light through without catching fire so easily. The candle inside is good tallow, thick as his thumb. He checks the candle height. Enough for several hours. He has a spare in the pouch at his belt. The pouch also holds a tinderbox. A short knife. A few strips of dried cloth for binding a wound, if it comes to it. His staff leans against the wall. Oak, 5 feet long, iron shod at one end. It is a tool more than a weapon. He uses it to test shadows, to prod suspicious bundles in doorways, to bang on a door without getting too close. He has not had to use it as a weapon in 11 years. He hopes not to start tonight. He lifts the bar from the door. Steps out. The lane is nearly empty. 2 women still walking quickly toward their house at the far end. They glance back at his lantern and increase their pace. Not from guilt, probably. Simply from the habit of moving faster when the watch appears. A cat on a doorstep, regarding him with the complete indifference of cats everywhere. The last light is fading from the sky above the rooftops. Not full dark yet, there is a pale blue residue in the west, the afterglow of the sun. But the streets are already in deep shadow. He lifts his lantern. The pool of light it casts is small. A circle of warm gold, perhaps 10 feet across. Beyond that circle, the town is shapes and gradients of dark. He knows these shapes. He could walk this circuit with his eyes closed, if he had to. The cobbles change under his feet, smooth near the market square, rutted near the tannery, briefly soft with mud near the ditch beside the fuller's yard. His feet know the town better than his eyes. He turns left. Toward the north gate. The gates are the critical points. A town's walls are only as strong as its gates. The walls themselves are stone and mortar, difficult to breach without siege equipment that no ordinary troublemaker possesses. But a gate is wood and iron hinges in a bar can be lifted. His job, partly, is to ensure that bars stay where they belong. The north gate is closed. He lifts his lantern and examines it from a few feet back. The bar is seated in its brackets. The iron latch is thrown. The hinges, visible at the edge where the gate meets the frame, are undisturbed. He touches the bar. Solid. He walks the perimeter of the gate arch. Both sides. Checking the corners where someone might shelter. Nothing. He makes a mark in his memory, North Gate, well after curfew, no irregularities. He has a tally stick, a short piece of split wood, on which he will notch his checkpoints when he returns to the Guildhall at the halfway point. For now, the mark is simply in his mind. He turns back into the town. The town at night is a different place than the town in daylight. He has thought about this often, over 11 years. The same streets. The same buildings. The same people behind the shuttered windows. But somehow an entirely different place. In daylight, the town is noise and motion. People calling to each other, arguing, laughing. Animals. Wheels. The accumulated clatter of several thousand people going about their business in a small walled space. At night, it becomes quiet enough to hear individual sounds. The creak of a sign in the wind. The particular sound each type of building makes as it cools. Timber contracts differently than stone, stone differently than plaster. Water, if it is raining, and tonight it is not, finding its way along the gutters carved in the center of each lane. And underneath all of it, when everything else is quiet, the sound of people sleeping. Not literally audible. More a feeling than a sound. The sense of several thousand people in their beds, their breathing slowed, their dreams turning. It is not an unpleasant sensation to be the one awake among the sleeping. There is a light at the alewife's window. Mildred keeps longer hours than most. Her alehouse is supposed to close at curfew, everyone's is, but Robert has known her for a decade and understands that the last customers often require some time to finish their cups and find their way home. He pauses outside. The light is dim. Voices, low. The sound of a bench scraping. He waits. The door opens. Two men emerge, blinking, wrapping their cloaks around themselves against the cool air. They see Robert's lantern and both immediately become very interested in the direction of their own houses. "Evening," Robert says. "Evening," says one. "Just heading home." "Good timing," Robert says. He watches them go. Neither is unsteady on his feet. Neither is the kind of trouble that requires attention. The door closes. The light inside goes dimmer, a candle guttered, or moved to a back room. He moves on. He walks. His shift began at curfew and runs until the small hours, when Henry, the youngest of the four watch, takes over until dawn. Robert will walk the circuit 3 times before he rests. He has learned, over the years, that the first circuit is for paying attention. The second is for thinking. The third is for endurance. He is on the first circuit now. Attention mode. Eyes moving. Ears open. But some part of his mind, the part that has done this long enough to trust the body to manage the route, is already drifting toward the day behind him. He spent the daylight hours at his other work. He is not only a watchman. No man could survive on a watchman's wage alone. By day, Robert is a cordwainer, a maker of shoes. He sat at his bench this morning for 4 hours, cutting and stitching. A pair of turned shoes for a mercer's wife, good kidskin, soft as cloth, sewn inside out and then turned so the stitching faces inward. They are delicate work and he takes care with them. He thinks about the stitching on the left shoe. It will hold. He is almost certain. But almost certain is not the same as certain, and he will look at it again in the morning before he delivers them. His hands are the hands of 2 trades at once. From the shoemaking, fine cuts on his fingertips from the awl. A permanent slight thickening of the pad below his right thumb, from pressing the leather against the last. From the watch, roughness across the palm from the staff. Calluses at the grip of the lantern's handle, always on the same spot. Different work. Different marks. He holds the lantern up at a corner, checking the cross street. Empty. He thinks about hands as he walks. His father's hands, which were carpenter's hands, broad and scarred and capable of enormous precision with a chisel. His son's hands, still smooth in the way of young men who haven't yet found their work. Edmund is 16. He has been apprenticed to a tanner for 6 months, which Robert is not certain is the right path, but Edmund seems to have taken to it with something resembling enthusiasm. Tanning is not a gentle trade, the smell alone is considerable, but it is steady work and a guild that pays well. Whatever his hands become, they will become that through use. That is how hands are made. The South Lane is the narrowest street in the town. The buildings on both sides lean toward each other at the upper stories, a common enough arrangement, extended living space over the lane where the ground floor footprint is fixed, and the effect is of a covered passage, almost, the sky above reduced to a strip of dark blue between overhanging eaves. His lantern is particularly useful here. He walks slowly, checking doorways. The South Lane has more than its share of alcoves and recesses. Places where someone could shelter if they wished not to be seen. A bundled shape in the third doorway turns out to be a sack of something, wool, perhaps, left out by a merchant who will not be pleased to find it damp in the morning. He notes it. A stray dog slinks away from his light, preferring the darkness of an alley. A shutter overhead opens briefly and then closes again, someone checking the night, or releasing a bit of the room's air. He reaches the end of the South Lane and emerges onto the wider street near the market square. Better. He breathes more easily in the open space. He is never quite like the South Lane, even after all these years. The market square is very different at night. In daylight, it is the loudest, most crowded place in the town. Stalls from one end to the other. Shouting. Animals. The perpetual negotiation of commerce. The smell of food, animals, bodies, the particular sweetness of fresh-cut wood. Now it is open and still. The stalls are gone, most merchants take them down each evening, hauling the boards and frames back to storehouses. The permanent stone market cross stands in the center, lit briefly by his lantern and then returned to dark as he passes. His footsteps echo on the cobbles. They sound loud in the emptiness. He crosses the square methodically. Corner to corner, then the center, then down the far side. He finds nothing. A lost kerchief. An apple core. The usual residue of a market day, not yet swept. He pauses at the market cross for a moment. During the day, proclamations are read here. Penalties imposed. Goods weighed and certified. The whole formal theater of civic commerce. At night it is just stone. Just a cross on a plinth in an empty square. He respects it the same either way. He has become, over the years, a reader of smells. The town has a smell at every hour of the night, and the smells tell him things. The tannery is always present, the sour, heavy smell of bark and hides and the urine used to soften leather. You cannot get away from it in the South Quarter. He has simply ceased to notice it the way a newcomer would. The bakehouse smells change by the hour. Now, past curfew, Edmund the baker's fire is banked and cooling. The bread smell from an hour ago, the warm, yeasty richness that spilled into the street during the evening baking, has faded to something drier and older. The alehouse smells of spilled ale and wood smoke. The chandler's lane smells of tallow. Always. He lifts his nose as he turns the corner near the smith's yard. The forge is cold. He can tell without looking. A cold forge has its own particular smell, or rather, the absence of smell. Metal and char without the hot, electric sharpness that a live fire adds. Everything is properly banked or extinguished. As it should be. He notes it. Passes on. The east gate is heavier than the north. It is the main gate, the one through which the most traffic passes each day, the road beyond it leading to the larger town, the priory, the market road. Because of the traffic, it has been reinforced. Additional iron banding on the beams. A second bar in brackets above the first. Both bars are seated. He examines the gate more carefully here than at the north. Running his hand along the join between the gate and the frame. Checking the hinge pins. The hinge pins are a vulnerability. If they are lifted, and a man with the right tool and the right information could do it, the gate swings on the wrong axis. He presses each pin in turn with his thumb. Seated. Properly struck home. Good. He steps back. Lifts his lantern to illuminate the arch above. The arch is stone, mortared, very old. Older than the current gates by at least a century. The gates have been replaced twice in living memory. The arch endures. He lets the lantern drop. East gate, all well. There is a rhythm to the circuit that he fell into years ago. He does not rush. Rushing means missing things. But he does not dawdle either. There are corners to cover, gates to check, and the whole circuit needs to be completed before the night grows too old. The pace is specific. Almost exactly the same every night. His legs know it now without instruction. He breathes with it. In through the nose, out through the mouth, the cold air carrying the night's particular combination of smells. He has read that there are men who study the movement of air and the patterns of weather, who can predict storms from the smell of the wind. He does not claim that skill. But he knows this town's air, the way you know the smell of a room you have slept in for years. Normal. Everything tonight smells normal. He passes the chandler's shop. The carpenter's. The mercer's house with its upper story and its carved lintel that he always touches on the way past, a habit so old he cannot remember when it started. He touches it. carries on. The lane beside the parish church is called the Priest's Lane, though no priest has lived on it for 40 years. The church looms at the end of it. Stone tower, black against the dark blue of the sky. The cross at its top invisible, too high, too dark, but Robert knows it is there. The church is locked at night. Has been locked at night since a theft 3 years ago, silver candlesticks, taken from the side chapel. The culprit was never found, which left the parish priest with a permanent grievance against Robert and his colleagues that Robert considers unjust. He was not on duty that night. He stops himself from thinking about it. A familiar loop. He checks the church door anyway. As he does every night. The lock is iron and solid. The door, thick oak banded with iron, does not budge at his push. He moves on. The lane is quiet. A cat on a wall. The sound of his own footsteps. He thinks about his wife. Joan will be asleep by now. She keeps early hours. She works as a laundress, which means rising before dawn to start the water heating. Her day begins when his is ending and ends when his is beginning. It is a strange rhythm for a marriage, but it is their rhythm, and it has been for 20 years. He thinks about her often on these walks. Not always. Not obsessively. But in the quieter stretches, and most of the walk is quiet, she drifts through his mind the way the river moves outside the walls. Not demanding attention. Simply present. She will have left food for him. She always does. Something wrapped in cloth on the kitchen shelf, bread, probably, and some of whatever she made for supper. He will eat it between circuits, sitting alone at the table in the quiet house. He has learned to enjoy those solitary meals. The stillness of the house at night. The particular quality of eating alone when everyone else is asleep, the awareness of all the sleeping around him. There is something almost luxurious about it. He would not trade his night work for day work. He has been asked. He has considered it. But the night belongs to him in a way that the day belongs to everyone. He stops. A sound, from the alley between the Coopers and the ropemaker's yard. Not a loud sound. A soft one. That is why it catches his attention, a soft sound in the wrong place, at the wrong time. He lifts his lantern. Steps sideways to angle the light into the alley's mouth. A shape. Huddled against the ropemaker's wall. He waits. The shape resolves, in the lantern light, into a man sitting against the wall with his knees drawn up. Old. Very thin. A gray beard. A cloak that was once good quality and is now approaching rags. All right there? Robert says. The man opens his eyes. Looks at the lantern without alarm. Resting, he says. His voice is steady. Not drunk. Just old and tired. Robert looks at him for a moment. The man is not a threat. He is not clearly from the town. Robert knows most faces by now, but he is not young and dangerous either. A traveler, probably. An older man without the energy to find proper shelter before the curfew rang. Can you stand? If required. It's not required, Robert says. But it's cold against that wall. There's a stable behind the Guildhall. The ostler leaves it open. Warmer. The old man considers this. "All right," he says. Robert waits while he gets to his feet, slowly, with the careful movements of someone whose joints have made their objections clear, and then walks with him to the stable, 2 streets over. The ostler's boy is asleep in the hay. Doesn't stir. Robert leaves the old man at the stable door. "Stay out of the lanes before dawn," he says. "I will," the man says. Robert returns to his circuit. It is not in the official duties of the town watch to find shelter for wandering old men. The official duties are, ring the curfew bell, patrol the walls and streets, check the gates, apprehend those found abroad after curfew without lawful cause, report fires and other emergencies, present a written account to the alderman each morning. Nowhere in that list is, find the stable. But Robert has found that the job, as actually practiced, differs from the job as officially described in ways that require judgment. Who to stop? Who to direct? Who to warn? Who to leave alone? He has learned these judgments slowly, over 11 years. Some watchmen are harder. They follow the rule precisely. Anyone abroad after curfew is stopped and questioned and potentially held. The rule is the rule. Robert believes in the rule. But he also believes in the difference between a drunk mercer's apprentice looking for trouble and an old traveler who simply sat down too soon. The rule does not make that distinction. His judgment has to. He has been wrong, occasionally. The quiet figure in the doorway who turned out to be neither harmless traveler nor dangerous schemer but something more complicated, a fleeing wife, a runaway apprentice, situations that called for more than simple judgment. He is managed as well as he can. He walks on. The west wall is the oldest part of the town's fortifications. Roman, or so the older people say, though Robert is uncertain what that means precisely. That the Romans were here, that they built walls, he knows. That this particular wall section is Roman stonework, he cannot verify. It looks different from the rest, the courses are tighter, the stones cut more evenly, but that might simply be better medieval workmanship. He runs his hand along it as he walks. The stone is cold and slightly damp at this hour. A film of moisture from the night air. His fingers come away faintly cool. The wall is solid. It is always solid. He checks it because checking it is his job, and because 11 years have taught him that the thing you fail to check is precisely the thing that fails. A loose stone near the base, he has reported it twice in the last month. The alderman has said it will be repaired. It has not been repaired. Robert will note it again in his morning account. The gap in his authority is exactly there, at the point where his observation ends and the alderman's action should begin. He notes it. Moves on. He returns to the Guildhall at the halfway point. This is not written into the duties either, strictly speaking. But the convention among the watchmen is to return, to tally their notches, to exchange a few words if their circuits overlap. Tonight it is only him. He sits on the Guildhall step. The building is locked and dark behind him. Inside, the alderman's records, the town's accounts, the court documents, the formal apparatus of civic administration, all quiet in the dark. He eats a small piece of bread from his pouch. He has developed the watchman's ability to eat without hunger, To take food when it is available, because the next opportunity may be hours away. The bread is from yesterday. Joan baked on Tuesdays. This is Thursday's leftovers. Still good. Dense maslin, the kind that keeps. He chews slowly. Above him, the stars. He has learned the stars better than he ever expected. 11 years of clear nights teaches you the sky whether you intend to learn it or not. He knows the fixed pole star that sailors navigate by. He knows the bright ones that move with the seasons. He knows that the sky overhead in October looks different from the sky in June, and different again from February. He does not know the names astronomers would give them. He knows them by where they sit in relation to the Guildhall Tower. That one, past the north side of the tower, low and steady. That group, above the east gate when summer starts. His stars. His sky. He looks out across the market square from the Guildhall step. The town fits itself together in the dark in a way he finds he can read after all these years. The shapes of buildings. The denser dark of the church tower against the sky. The lighter strip where the main street runs between rows of houses. The very faint glow, barely visible, from a window here and there, someone up with a sick child, or simply a poor shutter letting through a candle's edge. 1,000 people, approximately. That is what the aldermen say. Perhaps a few more in good years. A few less after the last outbreak of fever, 3 summers ago. 1,000 people, asleep or nearly so, behind those dark walls. He knows many of them by face. A good portion by name. A smaller portion well, the people he sees every day as a cordwainer, his neighbors, the tradesmen who work his street. He is responsible for all of them in this particular narrow way. Their safety in the dark hours. The gates secure. The fire risk managed. The streets clear. It is not a large responsibility in the measure of the world. But it is real. Across the square, the bakehouse. He can see the line of faint light at the base of the bakehouse door, the lamp the baker leaves burning, the glow of the banked oven visible even from here. Edmund the baker and Robert the watchman have an informal arrangement. They have never spoken about it directly. But the baker, whose work begins before dawn, often hears Robert on his final circuit in the small hours. If the lamp is burning normally at the bakehouse door, Robert knows the fire is managed. If the lamp has gone out, or if the light is wrong, he knows to look more closely. A fire left and banked is the greatest fear in a town of timber buildings. Robert has woken Edmund twice in 11 years, once for a fire that was not quite a fire, a log that had rolled out of position against the oven door, once for something that turned out to be nothing, a shadow of light that read wrong from the street. Edmund did not seem to mind the second time. A man who has worked around fire for 20 years, Robert thinks, understands perfectly why someone would err on the side of checking. He watches the lamp glow for a moment longer. Normal. Good. He gets up from the step. Second circuit. The second circuit is where the thinking happens. The first circuit, he pays attention. Attending to the world outside. Checking, verifying, listening. On the second circuit, his attention can turn inward. The body knows the route. The eyes and ears continue their work, but the front of the mind is free. He thinks about the shoes. The mercer's wife's kidskin shoes, the left one with the stitching that he is almost certain about. He reconstructs it in his mind. The thread was good, waxed linen, properly pulled tight at each stitch. The all holes were clean. The junction at the toe, where the upper meets the sole, was his neatest work in months. It will hold. He lets himself be certain about it. He thinks about Edmund, his son, not the baker. 6 months into his tannery apprenticeship. When Robert saw him last, 3 weeks ago on Edmund's half-day, he seemed tired but not unhappy. He smelled considerably of bark and urine, which is the smell of his trade. He had grown. Visibly. The kind of growth that happens between 17 and 18 that makes a young man look briefly as if his head belongs to a body not yet grown to match it. He will be fine. Robert believes this without effort. Edmund has always been steadier than he himself was at that age. He slows near Agnes's house. Agnes is in her 60s. She has been delivering children in this town since before Robert was born. She is awake at hours that would fell a younger person, called out in the middle of the night with regularity, following the unpredictable schedule of infants who choose their own arrival time. Her light is burning. This does not alarm him. Her light is often burning. But he slows, out of long habit, and listens. If there is a birth happening, there will be sounds. Even through shuttered windows. The sounds of a birth are distinctive and do not require explanation. Silence. He stands still for a moment, listening past the silence. Agnes's cat comes around the corner and regards him with the professional assessment of an animal who has encountered the watch many times and found it uninteresting. He takes this as a sign that the household is settled. Agnes is probably awake reading or working by candlelight. She is known to do both, in the hours when her household is asleep and she has a moment of quiet that does not involve someone else's crisis. He respects her enormously. He walks on. The moon is rising over the east wall. Half full. The edge of it has the particular sharpness that means cold, clear air tonight, no moisture to soften the light. It changes his work. In moonlight this strong, his lantern becomes less necessary. The streets are lit in silver and shadow. He can see the length of a lane without holding the lantern up. He turns the lantern's horn panel toward his body, dimming the outward glow. Better to see than be seen, in some circumstances. A man who is watching does not need to announce himself. He walks in the edge of the shadow. The moon's light is strange to work in. Beautiful, in a way he acknowledges without much examining. Beauty is not the watchman's business, precisely, but he is not immune to the silver light on old stone and tiled rooftops and the dark mirror of the puddle near the tannery drain. He has seen this town in moonlight perhaps 3,000 times. Still the same town. Still recognizable. Still, in its own way, beautiful. The Second Circuit is mostly quiet. The people are deep into their sleep now. The late stragglers have been home for an hour. The fires are properly banked. He checks the north gate again. The same solidity. The same iron certainty of 2 bars in their brackets. He walks the south lane again. This time without the wariness of the First Circuit, he knows what is there. The wool sack in the doorway, still sitting in the damp. He moves it further under the eave where it will be better sheltered. Not his job. Just a thing to do. He crosses the market square again. The cross in the center. The vacant cobbles. He pauses at the spot where the market traders set up their stalls. By tomorrow afternoon this square will be full again. The Tuesday and Friday markets bring in people from the villages, farmers with grain and wool, people from across the countryside coming to buy or sell. The town exists partly for them. The walls and the watch exist partly so that they can travel to the market and return home with their money, their goods, their safety. He is part of the infrastructure that makes that possible. He has never quite put it to himself in those terms before. He thinks about it as he walks. The church bell rings from somewhere in the future of this night. He does not hear it yet. It will not ring for hours, the canonical hours spacing themselves through the dark like landmarks. He heard Compline when it rang, at the end of evening. He will hear matins in the deepest part of the night. He will hear lauds as the sky begins to lighten. His night is organized by those bells, the way his patrol is organized by the circuit. He thinks about the monks at the priory outside the walls. They are awake at each of the canonical hours, rising to pray, returning to their cells, rising again. Their night is even more interrupted than his. He has sometimes wondered what that is like, to structure a life around those interruptions, to treat each bell as a call rather than a punctuation. He does not have a calling in that sense. He has a trade. Two of them, in fact. He wonders sometimes if having a calling feels different from having a trade. Whether the monks feel something in those midnight prayers that he does not feel in those midnight streets. He does not think it matters for the purposes of doing the work well. He does the work well. He passes the smith's yard on the back of the circuit. The smith's forge is the second greatest fire risk in the town after the bakehouse. It burns hotter than anything else. The fire needed to work iron must be fierce, sustained, achieving temperatures that ordinary hearths cannot approach. Geoffrey the smith is meticulous about his banking. Robert has never had a concern about Geoffrey's forge. But he checks. He lifts his lantern at the forge door. The building is a lean-to structure attached to the back of the smith's house, unusual, arguably against the same logic that keeps the bakehouse separate, but Geoffrey's family has always worked this way and the aldermen have seen no cause to insist otherwise. The door is barred. He can feel, through the wood, the residual warmth of the day's fire. Still radiating. He presses his palm flat against the door for a moment. Warm. Not hot. The warmth of spent energy, not active danger. He steps back. Geoffrey's forge is fine. He walks on. He hears Henry before he sees him. Henry is 17, and 17-year-olds, even those trying to be professional, have not yet learned to walk quietly on cobblestones. The younger watchman appears from around the corner of the Chandler's Lane, taller than Robert, still carrying some of the coltish looseness of a young man not fully settled into his body. "Anything?" Robert asks. "A dog fight near the foaling yard," Henry says. "I threw a stone. They dispersed." "Good." Henry looks at him. "You?" "One old man in the ropemaker's alley." "Send him to the stable." "Anything else?" Woolsack in the doorway on the south lane. I moved it under the eave. Henry nods, cataloging this information with the seriousness of a young man who is still working out which things require seriousness. West gate's solid, Henry says. I did the full check. I'll do it again on the third circuit. It's solid. I'll check it again on the third circuit, Robert says, without heat. Henry understands. Not a criticism. Just the method. Right, he says. They part. The night teaches patience. He has noticed this in himself, across the years. He was not a patient man at 30. He was capable of it, in the way that most people are capable of most things if they must. But it was not natural to him. The watch made it natural. You cannot walk these streets well while impatient. Impatience makes you fast, and fast means missing things. Impatience makes you assume, and assumption means you have already decided what you will find before you find it. The night does not reward assumption. He has also found, less expected, this, that the watch has taught him to be a better cordwainer. Not in technique. The shoemaking comes from apprenticeship, from practice, from his hands learning their work. But in patience with difficult work. The kidskin shoes that require 6 passes on the same seam before the joint is right. The sole that needs to be soaked and shaped again before it sits correctly. He used to push past those moments. Now he simply works them. The night taught him how to not push. The church bell marks matins, the deepest part of the night, when the monks rise for their midnight prayer. He is perhaps 2 more hours before Henry takes over. He begins the third circuit. The third circuit is for endurance. His feet ache in the way they ache every night at this point. The right ankle, injured years ago in a way that healed imperfectly, sends its familiar complaint up his leg. He has learned to ignore it, not repress it, simply allow it to be present without making it the center of attention. The streets are as quiet as they will be all night. Even the animals have settled. No dogs. No cats abroad. Just the buildings. The dark. The stars. He begins at the market cross. Works the circuit deliberately. North Gate. East Gate. South Lane. The square again. The priest's lane. He is not thinking much now. This is the circuit of simple presence, of being the man who is awake while the town sleeps, of walking the circuit because walking it is what he has to offer. It is enough. The West Gate. Henry was right, it is solid. Both bars. Both hinges. The join between gate and frame tight and cold. He steps back and looks up. From this angle, standing in the gate arch, he can see the western sky framed by the arch's stone. The moon has moved higher. The stars are brilliant. He thinks about the old man in the stable. Whether he is warm enough. Whether the hay is deep enough. He thinks it probably is. He thinks about Joan, asleep. Her breathing, which he knows the way you know something you have heard thousands of times, the particular rhythm of it, deeper than he would have expected for someone so lightly built, steady and slow. He will be home before she rises. He will eat the food she left. He will go to their bed in the hours when she is at her laundry work. Their sleep will overlap slightly, in the morning, before she fully rises. This is their life. He does not wish it were otherwise. He is on the final stretch of the Third Circuit. The town is at its absolute quietest now. The deepest part of the night, the part that feels like the bottom of something, a valley between yesterday and tomorrow. He moves slowly. Not from tiredness, exactly. From the sense that this moment is specific and does not need to be hurried past. He is, right now, the person keeping watch over all of this. The sleeping baker in his fire. The old man in the stable. Agnes by her candle. Henry somewhere on the other side of the circuit. Joan and her laundry water, which she will start heating soon. All of it under this same sky, these same stars, these same stone walls that someone built several lifetimes ago and that stand yet. He passes the market cross one more time. The chandler's shop. The carpenter's. The mercer's carved lintel, he touches it, without quite deciding to. The smell of cold stone and cool air and the particular nothing smell of a town in its deepest sleep. He is almost done. He returns to the tower. He will not ring the bell again tonight, that is Henry's task, the dawn bell that he will ring as the sky lightens, calling the town back to itself. Robert's bells are the evening ones. The 8 peals that close the day. He stands inside the tower for a moment. The bell rope hangs still. He looks up at it. He thinks about all the men who have stood in this spot before him. The watchmen of this town in years past, decades past. Holding this same rope. Ringing this same bell. The rope has been replaced. The bell has been in place for 60 years, he was told. Before that, presumably, another bell. Another rope. The tower is older than all of them. The town is older than the tower. The need for someone to ring the bell at curfew, someone to be awake when others sleep, to check the gates, to move the wool sack under the eave, to send the old man to the stable, that is older than any of it. He does not know the names of the men before him. He thinks they would recognize him. Henry appears at the door. He is carrying his lantern and looks, Robert thinks, somewhat more tired than when they met 2 hours ago. The Third Circuit is harder on the young, in some ways. Experience compensates for the ankle. All clear, Robert says. All clear, Henry confirms. They do not say more than this. There is not more to say. A night without incident is a night without incident. Henry glances at the bell rope. I'll ring the dawn bell at first light, he says. Wait until you can see the market cross from the tower window, Robert says. Don't ring too early. Henry nods. He knows this. But he acknowledges it, which is the right response. Right, he says. Go home. Robert picks up his lantern and his staff. He goes. His house is on the far side of the market square. He walks it without the watchman's pace. He is off duty now, just a man going home. He can walk at his own speed. He walks slowly anyway. The habit of the night circuit is not easily put aside in the last 50 yards. He notices, the wool sack is still under the eave where he moved it. A good sign, the merchant will find it less sodden in the morning. He notices, the bakehouse lamp is still burning steadily. Edmund's fire has held through the night. He notices the sky is changing at the eastern edge. The deepest black has shifted, barely, toward a blue that is not quite darkness anymore. An hour, perhaps, until dawn. He reaches his door. Lifts the latch. The house is dark and warm and smells of the soap Joan uses in the laundry, a clean, faintly sharp smell that has permeated the walls over 20 years. He is home. The food is where he expected it. Bread and a piece of cold pottage in a covered bowl. He eats standing at the shelf, not bothering to sit. He is tired now, the tiredness arriving all at once the way it always does when the duty ends. His feet report their displeasure. His right ankle is emphatic. He eats the bread. The pottage has thickened overnight. He eats it with a spoon, standing, listening to the house. Joan's breathing from the bedroom. Still slow. She has perhaps another hour of sleep before she rises. The sounds of the house at rest, the settle creaking as wood contracts in the cool. The faint tick of the shutter. He rinses the bowl. He removes his boots with the careful movements of someone who does not wish to wake a light sleeper. The relief in his feet is immediate and substantial. He sets his staff in its corner. His lantern on its hook. The equipment of the night, put away. He is no longer the watchman. Just Robert. Joan's husband. Edmund's father. A cordwainer who makes kidskin shoes and whose left shoe stitching is, he is now fully certain, going to hold. He moves through the dark toward the bedroom door. He lies down. The bed is warm from Joan's sleeping. The wool blanket is heavy and familiar. He does not extinguish a candle, there is no candle burning. The room is dark from the moment he enters it. He closes his eyes. The circuit runs briefly through his mind. The way it always does when he first lies down. The gates, the streets, the square, the familiar shapes of the night. North Gate. East Gate. South Lane. The Market Cross. The Priest's Lane. The West Gate. All well. The old man in the stable. The baker's fire, still holding. The stars, as they were an hour ago, scattered across the October sky. Henry on the last watch, lantern moving through the quiet lanes, waiting for enough light to ring the dawn bell. The town in its deepest sleep, and then slowly, in the way of towns, beginning to stir. A few hours yet. The bakers first, always the bakers. Then the smiths. Then the noise of the day building itself from silence, the way it does every morning. Joan breathes beside him. His ankle settles. His hands, which have held the lantern and the bell rope and the staff, open slowly on the blanket. The work is done. The gates are secure. The fire is holding. Sleep. Just sleep. The night is quiet. And all is well.